What's up, everyone? Hope you're doing well today. This is Raphael Garcia here for episode number 56 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Today is Friday, May 1st, 2020, and we're creeping into month number two of our pandemic shutdown stage. And, I hope everyone is out there doing well, doing the best you can to take care of yourself, stay safe and to just remain healthy out in the streets because it's a very serious time. It's a very serious situation, and I hope you are taking it as such because we all need to do so if we hope to get some semblance of our normal, in air quotes, life back. I don't think it'll ever be normal again. I think our entire summer is gone, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just glad for those that are healthy. I've had a couple of family members dealing with COVID-19 rather seriously. I have some friends that have lost people very close to them, family members close to them, so I understand the pain that comes with this time. But again, I'm thankful for you taking some time out of your day to listen to the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast and hear me talk about professional wrestling for probably about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes tonight, as I have I guess a good amount of stuff to talk about today. We're going to look back at WWE content from the week, talk a little bit about some of the AEW content I saw, and also continue our conversations around Dark Side of the Ring. This week's was episode 7, I think, and that was the Dave Schultz episode, which was much more interesting than I thought it would be. I knew it was going to be good coming into it, but there was so much more around that story than I actually knew, even read about. I mean, this is right before I was born. I was born in 84, and a lot of this stuff was over by then. But, well, right up until I think the slap situation happened in 83. So, yeah, I mean, it was close, but still, I was too young to know about any of this. But still, it was something crazy. But we're going to start by talking about Monday Night Raw, just some of the high spots there. We're not going to go through every single piece, but it was good to see Samoa Joe back on commentary. I originally thought it was because they wanted to get Jerry Lawler off of the mic because he's been saying a whole bunch of stupid shit. Like, well, I can't even say lately because he's been doing it for years. But his ramen noodle moonsault was just not appreciated, and he tried to double down on that. Sean Ross Sapp was talking about that on his podcast, and he interviewed him. And I don't think he interviewed Jerry King Lawler himself, but he was sharing the story about Lawler trying to defend it, and it was just discussing his logic behind it. But bigot's gonna bigot, right? So what did we have first? What I want to talk about when it comes to Raw is the way WWE is leaning on some wrestlers that we wouldn't regularly see as much as we have been, but due to COVID-19 and the limited availability of a lot of their roster, they've been leaning on names like Apollo Crews, Austin Theory, Andrade, Zelina, Angel Garza, Ricochet, and Cedric Alexander. A lot of the NXT call-ups, Aleister Black. They've been leaning on a lot of people that we would and would not be seeing all week. Like, I don't think we would be seeing Apollo Crews on Raw every week if it wasn't for this situation. Same thing with Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. We know we wouldn't be seeing them all the time on Monday Night Raw. We may be seeing Zelina Vega and Andrade, maybe Angel Garza, but we know Austin Theory wouldn't be there right now if that was the situation either. So it's very interesting to watch it kind of play out that they're leaning on some of these individuals and hoping that they can get them through this dark spot. Vince tried a little bit to blame them in that situation for the low ratings. I mean, this week's Raw got 1.87 million viewers and is continuing to fall towards some of the low points in WWE history and is continuing to its downward slide. But I am actually kind of glad with what we're seeing with some of these newer faces, and we're going to talk about Apollo Crews specifically in a moment. But I think it is a good opportunity for them to help build some names at a time when they need it the most because Roman Reigns isn't there. Becky Lynch has been on TV the last 2 weeks, I think. Charlotte Flair is now on NXT. Obviously, you don't have the other two horse women. Brock Lesnar isn't there. Paul Heyman isn't there. AJ Styles isn't on the show. Undertaker isn't on the show. So there's a lot to really unpack about people not being there. And while it is detrimental to the show, I still think this is an opportunity for them to build up some newer names, and you see them slowly but surely doing that. Now, will that translate in the long run? The verdict is still out, but I'm enjoying what I'm seeing so far. Monday Night Raw was a good show. It was very good, in my opinion. I enjoyed it from start to finish. So we had the triple threat match, and it was what it was. It gave us our moments, but it led to the Apollo Crews and Andrade match that was later on in the evening, especially that backstage segment. I really enjoyed. I didn't like when Cruz was fake laughing. That just kind of seemed, it seemed forced. When he slapped the shit out of Andrade, I'm here for that. He slapped him the way my dad slapped me when I was maybe like 18 at the time, and I came walking into the house at like 3 a.m. from my girlfriend's place, and my dad was so pissed he slapped the shit out of me. I'll never forget that. That's how Apollo Crews slapped Andrade on Monday, and it was ridiculous. Now we're gonna jump to the match that they had because the match was great. This is the second time Apollo's been given a bunch of time on Raw. He had that match back with Houston Alexander. Goodness gracious, Aleister Black a couple weeks back where they went almost 30 minutes. It was a great match, great back and forth match. Yes, he lost, but it was still fantastic for both of them. This time he got to go with Andrade, and they tore it up. Now it led to him being pulled out of the Money in the Bank. Now, I think that situation is going to end with him winning the U.S. title at Money in the Bank, or maybe that Monday Night Raw afterwards, as like a sympathy type character because he has that injury. That's going to be that's the body part that they're going to work and make it seem like he was really hurt. I think he could be the United States champion by the time May, the end of May comes around. I'm gonna go ahead and book. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna book it right now. Apollo Crews will be United States champion by the end of May. Put it on the board. Write it down. I think that's what's gonna happen. But this match was good. They went for about 15 to 20 minutes. There was a lot of back and forth action, and I think these two guys are main event worthy in my opinion. They could be feuding for the WWE title right now. They could be feuding for the NXT title or whatever belt you may see it as because we know these guys can go. We know that they can deliver in every shape and form. And when you put them against other people like a new face in Drew McIntyre or a newer face, trying to think of someone else that could be put in that situation. But these guys are answering the call, being in Florida and having to deal with the COVID-19 situation at the Performance Center and still going in there performing very well. Cedric Alexander. Apollo Crews is an example of such. Cedric Alexander is an example of such because he's been performing just about every week. So many people have been doing that, and it definitely stands out because it's helping a lot of them get more exposure than they would have had. Now we're talking about time, and we got to talk about this women's triple threat because I got excited when I saw this announcement. Asuka versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Thought that was going to be something fun to watch, but the match actually never got started. They started brawling. Nia Jax knocks both women back. She throws a ladder into the ring by herself. We're all impressed by that. Then she knocks Baszler and who is Asuka down to the ground, and then that was the end. The ref called it, even though the match never started. So I feel some type of way about that because this could have been a decent match, and you could have ended it without the point of someone losing in some other fashion. Just it felt like a bait and switch. Like I was looking at this like, yeah, I'm looking forward to this match. Bait and switch. It happens a little bit too much on WWE content. We know that that's the case. Liv and Ruby Riott had another match, and Liv won the same exact way she won last time. Chasing after Ruby into the ropes, hits her with the flatliner. Now, Liv kicked out of the Riot kick. I liked how Ruby Riott sold that, and I also liked that they didn't make the decision to do 50-50 booking after Liv just beat Riott last week. However, I am feeling some type of way about how weak Ruby Riott's been booked since her return. I don't think she's won a match, not even a squash match, coming back as the heel coming back from surgery who turned on one of her best friends. I don't think she's gotten an individual win since her return. Let's look at that real quick. So according to Cage Match in 2020, let's see, because she came back this year, right? That's okay. So yes, her last match before injury was May of 2019. in a fatal four way for the title at WWE Live. Actually, hold on, no wait. Yeah, so let's look at this. Ruby Riott returned to action in 2020 in March. So she lost to Liv Morgan with Sarah Logan as the special guest referee in 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Then she lost the Elimination Chamber match. Then she lost the Money in the Bank qualifying match in a 13-minute match with Asuka. Then she's gone on to lose to Liv Morgan twice in than a less than a combined 7 minutes. So yeah, that's really where we are with Ruby Riott. It's like, what are you guys doing with her? Because she could be so much more than that, but we know that that's not how they book the women's division. So I mean, I also don't want to dive too much into that, but that was just something that just stood out to me as like, why are we doing this? I hope we don't get this match again. We shouldn't. There's no point in doing that because we've seen more than enough from both of these ladies in this setting and in this rivalry here. We got Jinder Mahal is back. Now, he had a squash match with Hiro Tozawa, did what he needed to do to get that win, and looked good doing it. But he's also in that gauntlet match next week to see who takes Apollo Crews' spot. So are we looking at a situation where Jinder Mahal becomes the men's Money in the Bank winner so he could be faced off against Drew McIntyre in the near future? I, for one, am not totally opposed to this because it's a new face when we haven't seen on in the Raw title picture in a while or at all. One time he was a SmackDown champion, and he does have that cachet where he was a SmackDown champion. And Liv Finis and Drew and Jinder have a background together in 3MB, which could be leveraged into the storyline. I think that this should only last maybe a month, get it over with. But I do see Jinder coming out with the title and not the title with the briefcase and be the next challenger for Drew in the near future. We also got some more Cedric Alexander and Ricochet in the tag team match. They've wrestled against two guys named Martel and Parker. I guess they're from the NXT roster. I'm not too sure who they are, but it was some good back and forth action. I do think Cedric and Ricochet took a little bit too much from the jobbers, but they get the win. And then we get MVP, who is on the screen saying he's going to manage Shane Thorne and Brandon Vink. Now, when I first saw MVP, I was hoping that he was going to try to recruit Cedric and Ricochet and make that a stable. But we're going in the totally opposite direction now. We could be set up for a situation where MVP sees them lose and kicks them to the curb and then tries to book Cedric and Ricochet. I'm here for that. Because I think that they need a mouthpiece. They need someone like MVP who's good on the mic and has that ability to get situations over using his words. I think that would be a good fit for them. I'm not going to go as so much as to make the Paul Heyman the Advocate example, but this is something I could definitely get behind. Now we're going to talk about NXT from Wednesday. Now Beth Phoenix was back in the booth, which is another good change there. So the first match we got was Swerve Scott versus El Hijo del Fantasma, and I love saying his whole name. It's like saying a Tribe Called Quest. You got to say the whole thing. So this was a great match, and the word that I want to describe it as is smooth, because not only was Swerve Scott looking like so fluid, but El Hijo is just fantastic. Phantasma is great. He lost this match, and I saw a lot of people taken to social media talking about how they're already burying him or using those types of terminology. And I disagree because I think this is more about the unpredictability of the round robin tournament, which sets up what I think is the biggest storyline in this tournament in Drake Maverick and whether or not he's going to get fired or what the WWE is going to do with him because they could make this into a bigger storyline. But uh, they're not. So, or at least they're not. I can't say they're not. We just don't know what's going to happen because it's a round robin tournament and we see guys are getting knocked off one after another. I wasn't expecting Akira Tozawa to beat Swerve, and he did that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next and how it continues to move forward. Then we got Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano. Candice LeRae went up against Casey Catanzaro. It was good to see her back in the ring. You know, she had the back injury. I believe it was a back injury that she was talking about retiring, but it was good to see her back in the ring. And man, I did not realize how tiny she is because Candice LeRae is small. And she was towering over Casey Catanzaro, like so much more bigger than her. And I was just like kind of shocked that she was that small. But Candice gets the win, and she used this move called the Wicked Stepsister, where it basically smashes your face into the mat, and you use your arms usually to break fall, whether it be forward break fall, back break fall, etc., etc. But the way Candice is holding her, she pushes her face first into the ground. I hope, man, that would be nasty to see on the mat, on outside the ring or outside the building or something like that, because that looked fantastic. It was good. Then we get what was probably up to this point in 2020, we got what was the best segment, in my opinion, of professional wrestling, non-professional wrestling content. The Newly Bros show with Timothy Thatcher and Matt Riddle out there doing this game host shtick. But Byron Saxton's teal, I'm guessing teal suit, and his delivery on his lines, excellent. That man is I need to find out more about Byron because he's just fantastic in every role that he's put in. And he out there was looking straight foolish. At first, I thought it was not going to be funny because I'm not too familiar with Thatcher. But man, they delivered. This joint had me cracking the hell up. I wonder just how much of this is because of the Bubbly Bunch, because the segment itself is a throwback to like an 80s game show. And Saxon was a host asking the questions, and it's more like what's the name of that show? Well, I can't think of it. What the Thatcher was being asked a question, he had to guess how Matt Riddle responded, and it was funny watching them go back and forth. Then Imperium runs in and beats the holy brakes off of Riddle, and the way he splatted when they hit him with that, I guess that's that toss over the barricade sounded disgusting. But Imperium show up and they basically cement themselves as the next title challenger. Then we get Charlotte Flair versus Mia Yim, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about this match right at this moment. I like Mia Yim. I can tell she's putting in work, and I can tell why people like her. A lot of people in my social circles like her as well, but I'm just not sold on her. I'm just not. It's just something about her to me that seeing her in the ring that just doesn't translate for me. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't translate for me in a way that makes me want to watch her. But they still had their match, and Flair won with the figure four to the figure eight. I don't want to talk about that segment with Scarlett and Katie, Killer Cross, whatever the hell they're calling them right now. Dexter Lumis versus Shane Thorne. This was a great match. Not a great match, excuse me. This was great to me because they got that shot of Lumis choking, what's his name? Shane Thorne? Yeah, choking Shane Thorne with his feet. Now, this is the same guy that will have that match with Ricochet and Cedric this week, but he gets squashed here. Let's see. The next piece I wanted to talk about. Let's just talk about the Drake Maverick Tony Nese section because they had a great match against one another. I remember they had a match they had interactions around the not Cruiserweight Classic, but the tournament to crown a new champion after Enzo had left. So that was pretty intriguing as well there. But Drake Maverick gets the win with, I guess it was more of a bulldog off the top rope. I think Rey Mysterio has used this move before where he bounces off the ropes, jumps He bounced off the ropes, turns away from his opponent, but jumps into them like a wheelbarrow situation, comes up, catches their head, and finishes them. That's how Rey Mysterio does it. Drake Maverick did it from the top, and that looked sick, and that's how he got the pin. But before that, Drake was out there selling like a motherfucker. Like he was selling everything. The way he was screaming and yelling, you would think that he was really in pain. Clearly, you know it's professional wrestling. But man, he was selling like hell out there, and I'm a fan of that. We also got Keith Lee versus Damian Priest, and this to me was a huge, big time house battle. Those two guys were throwing fisticuffs, bungalows, everything, any other word you want to call it, because they were out there hammering each other. I mean, this was a house battle like any other, and you got to call it what it is. Like Biggie said, you got big men with big chests and big muscles bumping meat. That's exactly what it was. But they delivered, and it was a good match. I enjoyed it from start to finish. Keith Lee has to be a strong motherfucker the way he's just tossing Damian Priest around. For a second there, I thought they were going to put the title on Priest. They did not. Uh, I didn't like the whole nice stick spot at the end. It seemed too long. But Keith Lee wins and keeps his title. I'm here for that. I was not a Keith Lee guy at first. The way I feel about Mia Yim was very akin to the way I felt about Keith Lee when he came to the organization. Ironically, they are a couple, but Keith Lee has won me over now. So let's see if Mia Yim can do the same thing because Keith Lee is a star. I hope he gets a moment with a big dude like a Big E or like a Brock Lesnar, something outside of the Royal Rumble where they can have a prolonged angle together. I think that would serve him very well. So I wanted to talk about some of the AEW content from this week. I had to go back and watch some of that. And just a couple points I want to talk about. So we had the TNT title tournament, and the minute the brackets were broken out, you knew what we were getting. We were getting a Kobe Lance Archer match at the end. I have a few thoughts about that. I understand how they got here. And yes, predictability is not always a bad thing. Like we knew Kofi Kingston was going to win the title at WrestleMania last year. We knew that. And it was predictable, yes, but it was what everyone needed in the moment. So now you have this tournament with Thatcher and Riddle. Not this tournament, excuse me. You have this tournament here with Cody and Lance Archer in the finals now. And it was clear as day. Like you knew that Dustin was going to get past. I think he had Colt Cabana in the first round. Who did he have? I can't remember who he had. But you knew Dustin was going to get through to the second round just to get smashed by Archer to set up a situation with Cody. And I liked how they leaned into throwing the towel, or Cody wanting to keep Dustin wanting to keep going before he got put out of his misery. But I wonder, could this belt be better used if by someone else? Now, part of this has to be because of the limited wrestlers that are available right now to AEW because of the pandemic. So there's that. My question is, would this have been the route that we go through this way, even still, without the pandemic? We'll never know the answer to that question, but he's doing what was needed of him in that situation there. So I also wanted to talk about the Britt Baker segment because I saw a lot of commentary about it on social media before I just actually just watched it today. I didn't see it live. And I gotta admit, I was someone who, again, just like me again, I was not sold on Britt Baker. I wasn't sold on Britt Baker for other reasons. She just doesn't seem like someone who I like to watch wrestle. She just like, I'm sorry, I'm over the blonde white women being at the top of the wrestling circle. I'm over it. And she fits that narrative. She fits that archetype very strongly. That's who she is. So I'm just not here for it. But this was a good segment. It was hilarious. And it was funny in a non-professional wrestling way, not like the smarky I know what's going on behind the scenes, so I can laugh at the innuendo and the behind the scenes jokes. No, this was just funny. Funny. It was funny because she's being obnoxious, because she's being passive aggressive, because she's being like a know-it-all bitch, and it was pretty funny from start to finish, and I enjoyed what I saw there. I hope we get more of these vignettes, and I hope that her ring work matches what we see. I hope it's not just about these promos and these funny videos, but I don't want to see her continuously being booked going over women of color either. You know, it's just I'm rooting for everyone black. I'm rooting for everyone brown. So I would like to see Britt Baker have success. I hope it just doesn't come at the expense of talented women of color and women of color only. Other notes from this week's edition. I didn't watch the whole show, but John Moxley will be in the house next week. Wardlow gets another squash match, and I like that they're using him for something, especially with MJF out, quote unquote, with the injured hangnail, which I actually have right now. But we also got a dose of Kip Sabian, Havoc, and Shawn Spears. I don't care what's going on. They come on the screen, I'm turning. They have X-Pac heat with me, what I like to call Lacey Evans heat now. I won't root for them. That's Shawn Spears. I'll never root for him. Kip Sabian, okay, we'll see what we get from there. Havoc, no, I'll pass. So looking at these three guys, having them on the show again, I know that they have to keep people fresh, keep rotating people out the best that they can, because they definitely can't have their whole roster there. So I understand what they're doing. Still, those three guys, not my cup of tea. So that brings me over to the third topic for tonight, and that's Dark Side of the Ring, episode 7. David Schultz slap heard around the world. And as I said at the top of the show, top of the podcast tonight, I had heard about this situation. I've seen the video of him slapping Schultz. I've seen that piece of it. But everything that happened before and the couple of things they talked about happening after were so interesting to me. So they start off with David Schultz, and he is the prototypical Southern wrestler during that time. He is he gets into the business the hard way, basically having to fight his way in. And he is being booked with Hulk Hogan during that time in Georgia. I believe it was Georgia. And they were doing well together. We all know the story. Hulk Hogan goes to WWE. He says, hey, I have a guy that I want you to bring up, so who I work very well with, and that's David Schultz. And they go up together. So while this is going on, this is where the pieces of it that I had not known about come into play. We have Eddie Mansfield, who was attempting to be a baseball player but couldn't because he gets injured. He becomes a wrestler as well too. So during that time, promoters would take money from the wrestlers as like a tax for nothing, no other word that could really be used to describe that. It was a tax. Eddie was like, man, I ain't here for none of that shit. So he becomes like the David Starr of the 80s, pushing for unionization in wrestling, that they need to band together, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing he does is he goes to John Stossel, who is a reporter, an investigative reporter for 2020. He goes to John, and he basically gives him all of the background scenes of all the behind the scenes of professional wrestling, showing him how to work a little bit in the ring, showing him how to take bumps, how to give bumps. But he also showed the way people blade in professional wrestling, just totally broke kayfabe, totally broke everything that David Schultz stood for. And that leads to the whole situation where Stossel confronts Schultz and gets the shit slapped out of him. Stossel was invited backstage by WWE at Madison Square Garden. And I like the I may have booked his name right now or butchered his name. Mansfield. I liked how he specifically said he told Stossel, do not ask Schultz any stupid questions. So what does Schultz do? What does Stossel do? He asks Schultz probably the dumbest question you could ask him about wrestling being fake. Schultz slaps the shit out of him. He hits him the first time, then he hits him again after he gets back up. And I'm going to talk about the quote he said during that point in time too, because it was one of my favorite ones from this episode. Schultz ends up Well, he doesn't lose his job right there on the spot. He loses it some time later for a situation involving Mr. T that he thinks was fabricated to get him out of the organization. Vince McMahon wanted him to be the fall guy for the slap because Stossel was now suing the WWE. But he wasn't suing David, he was just suing Vince in the WWE, which I found very interesting because they brought that up in an episode as well. So Schultz gets fired. Stossel settles for 280K. And Schultz goes on to become a bounty hunter. Now that was probably the first part where I had to lean back, like, "Are you kidding me?" He becomes a bounty hunter, basically catching people who skipped bond. He didn't say too many. He didn't like talk about anything as in like personal dangerous situations, but he definitely talked about how dangerous it could be to attempt to be a bounty hunter. Let's talk about my favorite quotes because that's the thing about Dark Side of the Ring. Every time I watch, they have some of the best quotes that you can capture. Let's talk about some of those really quickly because these are my favorite quotes from this episode. So the first one is from David Schultz, where he says, "I was always taught that if a man gets back up, you gotta knock him back down." I think that's a very true, very good quote there. Eddie Mansfield's quote was probably my favorite one from the show because he says Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, but he forgot to free the pro wrestlers. That right there was hilarious to me because it is very indicative of even today's space and what's going on. Hell, you just had a WWE let go, what was it, 20 wrestlers so far last week? Give or take, well, not just wrestlers, but they let a lot of people go for financial reasons. But man, that was pretty powerful line there. And then John Stossel was asked, "Hey, if you could speak with David, have a sit down with him, what would you say?" This guy says his answer was "Fuck you, David." Like, whew, that is pretty heavy there. Fuck you. Guess I won't be sitting down and having any conversations anytime soon. But this was a good episode. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this one more than the one with Dino Bravo. Although the Dino Bravo one was probably a little bit more informative. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and close out today's show. As always, my name is Raphael Garcia, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my content. You can find me, as always, on Instagram and Twitter at rgarcia_sports, where I'm talking professional wrestling, basketball, MMA, movies, comic books, everything in between. I like to talk about a lot of different things on social media. And I'm working on my top 10 matches from the 2020s. I just reviewed the Kofi Kingston Daniel Bryan match, and that was actually my first time seeing the match from that like the regular setting. I was there, so it was a little difficult. Not difficult, it was just a different experience. But watching the match live, it was every bit as good as I knew it was being there. So I'm working through those. I'll probably drop that review on Sunday or Monday. However, again, Rafael Garcia, rgarcia_sports. Thank you for listening to episode 56 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Go on over to MMA Ratings to see all of our content. You can catch us across all the social sphere at MMA Ratings. And I appreciate everyone. Thank you and have a great night.